Enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz. We all know a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people seated around the table engaging in lively discussions. And Good Company gives you a seat at the table to enjoy smart and interesting conversations as they happen. I am so pleased to have back again at this table Charles Shepard, the president and CEO of the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. Welcome.
I'm delighted to be here.
Well, and we have the reason also I'm having you here is not only because I find what you do interesting and exciting, is because the museum is celebrating its 100th anniversary or its centennial. And you actually, I was thinking about it. So you've been the president and CEO for, it'll be 19 years, you said.
19 years this year coming.
This year. So that's almost a fifth of the museum's history.
It's a long run. And in fact, I think I've been at the head longer than anybody ever has.
Right, because, well, there were also some, when I was reading about the 100, there were some people who were short terms and some, most of them weren't, no, there was no one who, some were 5 years, not really long. But, so I want to talk about, obviously, when people think about museums, you know, the Metropolitan or the Art Institute, obviously those are hundreds of years old. But what does it mean that a mid-sized city like Fort Wayne, to have a art museum that is 100 years old?
Well, I think you've hit upon something very important. That you could exist for 100 years is great. Now, that you could exist and prosper for 100 years, even greater, because in fact, we came from humble roots. We had to slug it out in tough years. We had to slug it out in recent tough years, even in my tenure when the economy went so sour. And then you get to tough it out through COVID and all these other things. And through all of this, we've always come out stronger. And I feel blessed that in my 19 years, every couple of years we do another big leap and think, wow, I never would have thought we could have made it here, and we did.
Right. So last time when I had you and Amanda on, we actually were just talking about you were just starting on the focus on really putting your emphasis on glass and glass art. And since that time, you really have put a huge stake in the ground with the glass art. So tell me about what happened. And I think it's an interesting story about understanding what your role is of how this, it's the Fendel, right? Collection.
Yes.
Your role of how this huge collection came to Fort Wayne.
Well, and to begin with, I'm one of the few president CEOs that's also the chief curator. And why would that be? It basically is because I have a vision for that collection and what the collection drives throughout really the collection drives everything. And
are you talking about the overall?
Overall.
So this is the permanent collection.
In my vision, glass began to be more and more predominant. Its potential. Let's say its potential, because we didn't have much yet, and we would get a piece here, we'd get a piece there. Next thing you know, we've got another Chihuly. Next thing you know, we've got 3 other Chihulies, and we think, okay, so
and then
we
you
have
got the blank,
the big Martin blank, and the big Martin blank. It's interesting you remember that, because that piece, 52 feet long, from a famous Chicago building's lobby.
Yeah, but you saved it
then
from
in the
a basement.
Yes,
right.
they were going to throw it away.
Right, and then you got it, and then it was on loan.
It was
right?
on loan. It had to be on loan for a period of time to help all the tax relief happen for the buyer, and then the donor. Okay, so that piece and that action, though, that was more pivotal than anybody remembers. People think that the big Chihuly chandelier was the big pivotal thing. No, it's the Martin blank, because everybody in the glass world knows Martin, everybody in the collecting glass world in particular, and he's a lovable guy, and he's a warm, friendly, he's a hugger, so everybody's like, you saved Martin's piece. the big piece. It was his biggest indoor piece. And we did save it. So all of a sudden I would, be at Chicago Pier Show or something, or at a cocktail party somewhere where other collectors are, and they think, you're the Martin. You're the guy that saved Martin.
Right.
I think, I don't know you. And they go, we know you because you got it. You got it to Fort Wayne. Now we heard this Fort Wayne story. And so momentum,
Right.
as we said, a year or so goes by and you've had some good momentum. Now you've got even more momentum. And we're probably the only organization that actually prospered during the lockdown of all this virus stuff, because we went to Zoom almost immediately. And the interesting thing about art collectors everywhere, probably, but glass collectors stick together. All
Right.
over the country, they know
Right.
each other,
Yeah.
okay? And they're all, they've all had good careers.
Right.
Most of the collectors that I know are retired.
Right.
They're used to traveling everywhere they want to go,
Right.
gathering together with it. They
Right.
can't do it. So they've got a screen.
Right.
And all they can do is sit in the house with the screen. They want to be entertained.
Right.
And so I got a lot of invitations to, could you on a Wednesday afternoon, a Thursday night, a Saturday morning, could you give us a little program?
Right, and you were very used to, you're very used to because, first of all, you were very used to because you also do a lot of the purchasing online through auctions
Yeah.
and things. So you were very used to that. But you also really have intentionally, really were traveling around to the different art shows or art museums and really fostering a lot of inroads into this, what is a small community. Because I don't think people realize, although I happen to love glass, I mean, most people really know Murano glass, and then of course they know from the Seattle world, like Chihuly, and then all of the students from there. But it was really thought of just as a utilitarian craft because you had Blanco that made glasses and Corning that made dishes and lenses. There wasn't, and so a lot of museums dismissed it as just like a
and still do.
craft, right?
And still do.
But you really intentionally said, and really, I mean, this has been a mission sort of for, I would say probably what I noticed was like the last 6 years, and then really, it's sort of nice that it sort of has really made that tipping point at the 100th. So you started to do these Zoom calls and talk about...
And that's where Sylvia Fendel's daughter, Sylvia had passed away,
Right.
and her daughter is charged in the will with finding a home for the glass.
And there were how many? 33?
32.
32
pieces.
Okay.
And very nice pieces. You saw them.
Yes,
They're gorgeous.
yeah.
They're all museum quality.
Right.
Sylvia had great taste.
And Sylvia also, I mean, just so people understand, it's because I wanted to understand, okay, how did this glass, I mean, her first husband, I think, yes, was one of the husbands, she had
Yes.
one passed away, were very involved in the shoe industry and brought back Adidas in the 80s and 90s. So that's how they made their wealth. So these are not just like, little pieces. I mean, these are significant
major pieces.
Yeah.
And so, her first husband, Mr. Fendel, second husband, Mr. Rosenbach, and they collected until Mr. Fendel died, and then Mr. Rosenbach collected with her. And her daughter, Allison, is trying to decide what public place, a museum probably, right? But what museum and how much attention would it get and how serious would they take it and so on and so forth. And she somehow got my video. This monotonous 90-minute thing that would drive you crazy of me yakking about glass and what I'm going to do with glass, and we're going to be the Midwest Center for glass is what we're going to be. That and I say that everywhere, but keep saying it.
Right.
So she watches this thing, and I think she found me amusing, and said, "I'll call this guy up."
I think she also found you very intelligent, but I also will think you have excellent, I've said this to you, you have amazing hair. So you are very pleasant to,
maybe it was the
but you're very
hair.
pleasant. You might not realize you're very pleasant to look at and to listen to. And you're also
thank
very
you.
genuine and passionate. And you do have a vision.
And that's exactly what I tried to do in the video. I'm talking nonstop, but I'm passionate about it. I mean what I'm saying. I think we can do it. And she calls. And we had this fabulous conversation. In fact, we still talk, once a week, once every couple of weeks. And she thought, she's got to tell you, I'm in Manhattan, and I've never been to Fort Wayne, but I think that you would show this glass. I think my mother would be proud that, in fact, you'd bring this glass that she's spent a lifetime collecting to the people all the time. And I thought, that's exactly right, and that's exactly what we're doing. And now in that, and I've told you off camera, but I have to tell you this morning, this story once again, because I think viewers would like to think about the sheer luck of this. In Sylvia's collection is a little piece by Carl Belling. And Carl Belling was a very successful physician in Massachusetts, and his wife Stephanie, also equally successful physician. And Carl had this urge to do something creative when he got in his 60s. And so he went into New York a couple times a month and got taught how to make glass. And he wanted to cast glass. And so who did you get taught by? Bertil Valiant, the most famous sand cast glassmaker in the world. And Carl is his student as a still working physician. So Sylvia found a piece of Carl's glass when she was visiting Massachusetts in a little gallery that she would go to occasionally, and she bought the piece. She's even been, I think, in Stephanie and Carl's home. So, okay, here's this collection. Here's Carl's piece, and we call Carl, not knowing he passed away, we call Carl and say, we want to talk to Carl because we have a piece of his in the collection. And his wife, Stephanie, who we're talking to, says, well, Carl passed away 6 years ago, but I got to tell you, this is so exciting. He would have been thrilled. He never thought he'd be in a museum collection. He'd be so thrilled to know that. Well, that conversation led Stephanie and I and my new curator, Jenna Gilley, to have several conversations. And they were really all about, maybe we'll put 7 or 8 more pieces of Carl's work in your collection. And absolutely, love it. But, it kind of snowballed. And at one point, she's got her iPad or phone out here, and I can see glass behind her on the wall. She says, you're not asking me about any of that other glass. I said, well, I'm sorry, we were talking about Carl's work, and so I'm trying to be polite. And she says, well, ask me about the other glass. I said, well, what is the other glass? She said, well, Carl and I collected glass. She said, I don't even know how many pieces we have, but would you like the glass? Like all the glass.
Like their personal collection.
Their personal collection. So we're like, yes, we're screaming in the phone, yes, we'll do it. We would love to do that. Do you have a list of what it is? No, I don't know what it is. We bought it over all these years. If you want a list, you got to come and make the list. So I said, Jenna and Amy got on a plane. They went to Massachusetts. They made a list. They showed me pictures, and it was beautiful.
So did they have any of the pieces from the teacher, the master that?
Yes, yes. Oh, because the relationship was so tight.
Right.
So let's go back to Sylvia. So Sylvia passes. Allison picks us in the collection, leads us to Stephanie Belling. Stephanie gave us 181 pieces of glass.
When are they coming?
They're here.
Oh, okay.
They have not been shown.
Right. Well, you're going into the next century. You need it. I mean, I was looking, it was funny because on the, there's an aerial picture of the museum of where you added on. Yeah. And then I was sort of thinking to myself, well, they've got that parking lot in the back there.
That's right.
You're going to need a wing.
Well.
Or something for the.
Well, you're right. But you just sort of teed me up on a hot issue for me. Somebody was asking me, we agonized all summer long in the team and in the board meetings, are we going to go into that parking lot? It'd probably take about $17 million. Is it the year to do it? Well, it's the year to do it in the glass world because so many people, a lot of glass collectors are the same age.
Right, because they all came into it. Right,
yep.
They all came into it.
It
was like in the 60s, right? Because isn't that also when Chihuly started? Or there was a big.
Chihuly's late 60s.
Right, but there was that start of the glass movement.
Yes,
right.
63.
Yeah, okay.
Summer 63, Harvey Littleton.
That's it, yes.
And Harvey taught Dale. And Dale
Dale,
went
that's
on,
Dale Chihuly.
Dale
right.
Chihuly,
And then
that's
he
right.
went on to do
to teach
right.
tons of people.
Right.
And of course, he was the best marketing person
Right.
in glass ever.
And then like my parents, so I think in the 70s, they were just traveling and they went to and got some piece. And then they actually went to Italy, to Murano. They just went to see the Murano glass. And
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And then actually where we had a house in Vermont, in central Vermont, Simon Pierce, who is, he's a glass blower, but he makes glasses and bowl. I mean, they're beautiful. I mean, and so my mother would buy the seconds, which just had like a little, because you couldn't afford the,
But they're still gorgeous.
And then he really came over from Ireland. And then he actually, where he built his is on a hydroelectric dam.
Yes.
And then he teaches it. So then you also have all these students, and now there's also a big movement on the East Coast to teach. It's like it's called hot glass.
Yep.
Yeah, right. And then isn't there like a museum also? I think is it Toledo or is it that does where they actually do demonstrations? So it's become it's also become recognized as a valid medium for artists. It is very much a hot time, literally.
In the museum world, that is happening.
Right.
But it's happening more slowly than in the marketplace, which delights me. I'll tell you why. Because we're ahead of the curve.
Right.
You know, who would think that we have a chance in Fort Wayne to be ahead of the curve on a major art movement? But we are.
Right.
And so here we are, and let's go back to this expansion.
Okay.
This wing, because we do need a wing.
Right.
We do need a wing. Is it a good time to do it in terms of collectors? Yeah, it's an important time because a lot of them are downsizing in the next 3 years.
Right.
So you need to do your wing now.
Right, because they want to take it, or their children need to plan the estate, or however. Right.
Yeah. Well, and also, you need to show the collectors. I mean, these people have given 20, 30 years to collecting, spent a lot of money, invested a lot of money,
Right.
and are you serious?
Well, they also want to make sure that you're not going to just put it on a shelf or put it in
Or put it in the basement.
Right.
Or
It's too
lock it up and
beautiful.
back.
Right.
Right? So it's the time to do the wing.
Okay.
Is it the time to raise $17 million? And is it the time to build?
Right.
Well, it's a terrible time to build. All the prices are up for
Well,
everything.
supposedly they're coming down a little bit.
Well,
but,
look,
okay.
Incremental.
Right.
And can you get a crew?
But
Well,
would it be cheaper to do it like if you did like an all glass wing or something? Like so then
that would be exciting.
Right? Because it would be glass, so then maybe is glass cheaper? I don't know.
Well,
you need to find somebody, one of these collectors who also
wants their name on a wing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
'Cause it
I
would
just
be
got
cool if
back
it was
from
all glass,
Labor Day, and
yeah.
I'm walking through the museum, and
Right.
somebody came up and said, "Well, have you made your decision yet? And what would these galleries look like in this new wing?" And I said, "Well, come here, I'll show you something." And so I took them down into the Summer of Glass, which hadn't closed yet. And Summer of Glass is those 3 galleries devoted to glass
Right. So
all summer.
and you've always said that some people in Fort Wayne, even if they don't feel that the museum is for them, there seems to be this attraction and interest in glass because you've been doing the Summer of Glass for quite a while.
8 years now.
Yeah, so it's beyond. So that was even before all of this. There seems to be something, but it's just so pretty.
It is so pretty,
Yeah.
and it's not imposing an intellectual
Right.
burden upon you
Right.
that you're worried that you can't handle.
Right.
I've never read about this. I
Right.
don't know about this. So I said to the person who asked me the question, I said, well, you see in there, that's what I want. That's my wing. Those galleries are exactly what I want to build over here. And as I was saying it to him, I thought, wait a minute, what did you just say? Those are the galleries I want to replicate over here. Why replicate them? That's the new wing. So July 1st, next year, that wing of 3 galleries is devoted to nothing but glass, our permanent collection of glass.
Okay, so when you come into the museum, so you got the Paradigm Gallery over here. Is it the one?
The Rothschild atrium full of glass.
Right. So is it the one? So is it where you have it right now, where you have the blank piece?
If you follow the blank piece
Right.
and turn left,
Right.
you've got 3 galleries that will be perpetually full of glass.
So you'll
it'll
just
be
do
our new
different-
glass wing, and somebody can name the wing. 2 galleries of the 3 are named.
Right. But then what are you going to do? You still need a home for the things that you were using that gallery space for. You're still going to need to do. I understand you're sort of coming with a creative solution.
I'm going to, what do they say? Wring the blood out of the stone
right.
for this, though.
Well, no, wring the blood out of the glass.
Out of the glass. There we go.
But I think also then, as you get to know these, collectors and things, there may be that would want.
It wouldn't surprise me at all
Because then you could expand that out, yeah. But
and-
that's very
well, see,
exciting.
by doing it immediately, we're putting our hat in the ring in a serious way.
Right.
We're converting a former administrative office space / my student space.
Right.
We're converting that to glass storage.
Right.
So I will have room as of March to add 1,400 pieces to the collection.
Wow.
And considering that I'd have 300 out on the floor and rotate in and
Right.
out of that.
Right.
So all of a sudden, before we build a wing, I've got a wing and I've got storage.
Right.
And then you take a little time. You wait till the
Right.
market's better.
Right.
You wait till building is better. And you say, okay, now do we want another wing on top of that?
Right.
This would be a better time.
Right.
So we're not competing with anybody else's efforts
Right.
in fundraising, and we get what we want overnight for almost nothing. You know, I have to buy some new doors, I have to buy some new lights.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah.
You know, that's not bad. And this is the first time I've ever said this publicly.
Okay.
But I have
Ooh.
said it in some telephone conversations and a couple of Zooms. And since I said it, and this goes back to the week after Labor Day.
Okay.
The first time I ever said it.
Okay.
We've received 18 new significant gifts from people all over the country, sometimes one, sometimes two, last week 9. And it's like, what?
Who are the 9 from? You can't say yet?
I can't say
Okay.
yet. I can't say yet.
And it's all because, now, how does this relate though, like, because I know like the Toledo has a big glass, they have a stake in the glass
They do.
world, right? And
Well,
then
it was a glass town.
right. And then I know, and then obviously I think around Corning, obviously, because from there, but they were more scientific, but they were still interested in glass. And then you told me about a woman down in Florida who was thinking of building a museum. Well, maybe she won't need to build a museum now.
Oh, she already beat me to it. She
Okay.
did.
So
Trish Duggan.
So
did
how does that relate
Imagine
to,
Museum.
how do you work together or collaborate, or, because you said you want it to be for the premiere in the Midwest. So how would you'll differentiate what you do versus like Toledo? For
Well,
instance?
and Toledo's the first thing you have to look at because,
Right.
in fact, it's a great museum. They've got a great new glass wing. They've got the part where you see the glass in the exhibitions, and they've got the part where you make the glass, or you can watch
Right.
them make the glass. Okay,
I
but
think you're going to have to plan some field trips for some
absolutely.
people. And for us, to go and see this.
Just a road
Right,
trip.
a road trip,
Well,
yeah.
and the biggest difference, and I've been very careful to try to walk the path carefully, they have more emphasis on historic glass, which makes sense because it's a historic glass town.
Right.
And they have the contemporary glass, but we rival them in contemporary glass already. And I'm just getting started. You know, when we add another 1,000 pieces of glass, there's nothing like that in the Midwest.
So how many pieces of glass do you currently have, or coming
About
into the-
325.
Okay, and relative to how many pieces do you have in the permanent collection of the museum?
Oh,
Of the over the whole museum?
everything.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you a little comparison.
Okay, yeah.
When I came, there were 1,100 pieces in the collection of anything.
That's all?
Print, painting,
So that
sculpture,
was
1,100
19 years
pieces.
ago. That
19
was the
years
whole
ago.
collection. Okay.
8,000 and growing every week.
8,000.
I added 300 prints this week. 300 historic American prints.
And a lot of this is not through acquisition, because again, I mean, it's like donation, because the other thing was, so then the people who did the blank, that piece, then for whatever, then they gave it to the museum.
They did.
So you didn't have to pay for it. But then you also got, was it from them or someone else who gave you another blank piece?
Oh, from a collector and a fan of Martin's out in LA. He said, I love what you did for Martin. I'll give you one from my house.
So what people don't realize is, because you set aside from your past capital campaign a certain amount of money you had to acquire.
Yeah.
But a lot of this, like the glass and stuff, you're not buying.
Yeah, a lot of glass is coming in. More glass is coming in as gifts than purchases, and that's trend number one. Trend number two is artists are starting to step forward saying, I would give up my profit to be in the Fort Wayne Museum
Right,
of
because there's
Art.
value for them, and also, but then also
exactly.
you could also do some
And we ship.
visiting
We
shows.
pay the shipping.
Right. Well, yeah, but the visiting shows or stuff like. I mean, I was thinking in the botanical garden in Miami, they, Chihuly has these like amoeba kind of
Oh, absolutely.
bulbs or something.
They can be outdoors
Right.
all the
but
time.
I was thinking, now if you really have that presence, then you could draw, some of these kinds of exhibits, because that would be incredible to have those all over.
Wouldn't it be amazing?
Downtown or in the botanical garden, and so you could also then have other artists, or even like from the Blanco, which is out in Pennsylvania, the glass company and they still have some collector's pieces. But even to bring them here, because that would also link the manufacturing component of it. And then you also have the cut glass, right? It's the brilliant glass.
Yeah, and that's the historical. That's
Right.
our version of the historical.
Right, but
And
you could also do things with that to show some of the elements. Like I always believe that, like when it's like sort of when you see, like I like an emerald cut diamond because it's flat and there can't be any flaws, because usually they cut.
There's nothing to
Right.
disguise it.
So when you look at like brilliant glass or crystal, they cut it, they make it ornate and stuff where there would be flaws. So, but a lot of contemporary glass and art, it's like it's flat. I mean, there's no.
Yeah, if
but
there
you
was a
could-
flaw, it would
right,
show.
But you could show some of the influences or the dynamics, because also how glass is made really hasn't changed. I mean, it's
No,
how they.
no.
It's just.
It's what you use it for.
Right.
And Harvey Littleton and Nick Labino in '63 in Toledo, as a matter of fact, in a workshop for the Toledo Museum, their point was, why can't glass just be something I make a sculpture out of? We make sculpture out of steel, wood,
Right.
ceramic.
Right.
Why couldn't we make it out of glass? And it was a clunky workshop, but it stuck, and they were able to do it, and they were able to attract students who wanted to learn how to do it. And so we have it. And in a flip-flop for us, we have a smaller degree of historical glass, like the brilliant glass,
Right.
and a bigger on the contemporary side.
Right.
So Toledo's got
But maybe
just the reverse,
right,
but it's good for us.
But museums share and don't on loan pieces all the time, back and forth.
Less with glass, though,
Oh,
because of the fragility.
Oh, right, that's true.
And
yeah.
the weight. Glass is very expensive to ship.
Yes, I would think so.
It's got to be packed
Right.
very,
And yeah.
carefully
Yeah.
and shipping. So to get the Martin Blanc is a $2 million piece. To get the $2 million piece cost me $45,000
Right.
in shipping
Okay, but it's still worth
and labor. But still, oh yeah, $2 million for $45,000.
Right. But you're also,
sure.
I think, so what people don't realize is that in very ways, this is very, I mean, I think you had some what I call serendipitous moments or surprises about like people then calling and saying, but you were very intentional in developing this
Yes.
and
Yes.
the focus of it. But this isn't the first time that you've done something that's sort of what I think is very innovative and has had exponential impact. So you have these special collections that you do.
Yes.
And I remember, because I interviewed about David Shapiro,
Yes.
where you
yes.
went and in New York and you were picking up all these. How many pieces did he give to the museum?
Over 800.
Okay. And then you've done special collections with Stephen Sorman, Robert Kipnis, Katja Oakman, and Dennis McNett. And what you do there is you have very much large pieces of their work so that you can also become a research hub or a place for people to study that artist.
Yeah, that artist in depth. You could compare what did they do their first year, what did they do their second,
Right.
10th, whatever. And in the case of Shapiro, there's another dynamic that we're just getting
This is
embarking on.
yes.
The notion that, and it's why we would take 800 plus pieces, the notion that we could help other museums also feature David's work and help David's memory stay intact by being not 800 pieces just at us, our museum, but all at 800 other institutions. And as a matter of fact, we're about to do something with St. Francis right now to help the students meet David's work by gifting to St. Francis a series of David's works that can go around campus. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good project. And that's what Justin Johnson is, we've talked about
Okay,
before.
yeah, he's the head of the.
He's terrific.
He's the
Very
gallery
forward-thinking
there.
guy.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking about was this was part of your gift in celebration of your 100th. You're sort of giving a gift to people.
Yes.
But I was wondering, like, do museums do this? Like, is this? I mean, I don't ever think I hear of a like. It doesn't
it's
happen.
so unheard of.
Okay.
Some of the people we've called on the phone to say, we'd like to give you a gift.
Like what museums are? Is it like small museums?
Like, beg pardon?
Is it small museums? Is
Well,
it?
Truthfully, it started with the idea it could be any American museum that didn't have a David Shapiro.
Okay.
But I'm an underdog person. Okay, so I think, wait a minute. I like the sound of this around the table. But here's what I like the sound of better. How about we look for places that don't have a budget to acquire? How about we look for some places that nobody would do anything for? Let's do something for them.
And
Let's make that work.
And these, David Shapiro, what is the value of them? I mean, we're not talking, these aren't hundreds of dollars. These are
thousands of dollars.
and even
the average Shapiro painting, if you were to walk into a gallery that has Shapiro, and there still are 4 or 5 galleries that sell them, the average painting would start at about $25,000.
So this isn't a small gift.
No, it's a good gift.
So
it's a good gift.
Why do it? I mean, what was the because
for the good of David, for the good of David, for the.
But that wasn't a stipulation in your getting the exhibit. I mean, getting the collection.
It was
right?
something that his widow and I talked about. Could we pull it off? And we were still talking about it when she died. And,
when
and
did she pass away?
She passed away really less than a month after she made the gift.
Oh, okay. So that was like 3 years ago. 2.5 years ago, I think.
Could be 4.
4. Yeah,
I lose
okay.
track of time with COVID.
I know.
But I'll tell you.
So what is it like? You call up this museum and say, "Hi, I'm Charles Shepard, and I have a David Shapiro that I just want to give to you." Okay, this is a prank.
Well, yeah. Is it a prank?
Right.
See, museums aren't geared for that conversation. So we've had people say, well, I guess thank you. Could you send me a photo? And you'd have to wait 6 months before my committee meets, and so on and so forth. So I think, okay, it's going to take us a little longer to do than I thought.
But once one hears, I bet you then they're going to start calling you.
Because, I think
how many do you want to get out there?
Well, originally I thought, let's get 100 out there.
Okay.
As a starter, let's get 100 out there. And I'm still in that camp. But, I'll tell you something else, too, that's come up, which has been related to this notion of gifting during our party. Let me give you a gift.
Right.
Okay. We have things that we've acquired over the years, over the 19 years, that, really aren't germane anymore. They never were germane enough to hit the permanent collection. They are sort of, in some cases, a prop for an exhibit. In some cases, something we would study or use with kids. And the best here's the best example I can give you. We have a carousel horse, wooden, by a famous maker, Loof, L-O-O-F, and I loved it, and I used it in exhibits for 2 or 3 years of Americana.
Right.
And, I don't know anything really about Loof. I read a paragraph or 2. The horse, to me, should be restored, Thankfully, I did not do that,
Right.
So
it should go to like a toy museum or a...
Well, it turns out there's a carousel museum in Sandusky, Ohio.
Well, that's when a lot of the carousels were made, I think. When they were made of the wooden carousels.
So Jenna Gilley, who I just mentioned, is one of our new curators.
What is she?
I said, Jenna,
what's her?
Her specialty is going to be glass, fashion,
Oh, you're
high-end.
going to do fashion.
We're going to do fashion. We're going to do a big show on Bill Blass.
Right, because he's from Indiana.
And we're going to do a big show about contemporary wearables.
Well, I worked at Women's Wear Daily.
See,
I was a reporter at the...
You're going to be interested then.
Oh, yeah. No, I've interviewed Bill Blass.
So I asked Jen, I said, look at this horse. Find out between you and Suzanne Slick.
Who's your archivist.
Yeah, you both love this horse, but find it a home. So the two of them took off, and Suzanne, one went one way, one went the other, and Suzanne said, "You're not going to believe this. There's a carousel museum." And I thought, I've never heard that ever. Where is it? Like in France, or what's the story? No, it's in Sandusky, Ohio, and I just had them on the phone, and they know the horse. And they don't have any horses that are in the original condition, never been restored or retouched or anything. This is huge to them. So I said, okay, we'll tell them, happy anniversary from us.
Just pay for the shipping.
Yeah. Well, no, we drove it to them. They didn't have any money.
That's right. Oh, right.
We rented a truck and put 2 of our people in the truck, and we drove it to Sandusky.
That's amazing.
And gave them the horse.
And also, so I think that it's important for people to understand that although you're focusing on glass and you're giving some of these David Shapiro's and like you're taking some of these one-offs or maybe in the collection, because over the 100 years, sort of what the focus or the types, it's always been American art, but maybe emphasis. You're not just saying we're going to become a glass museum. I mean, that's not the goal of it.
Not at all.
So you're still going to, I mean, the main area is American art, correct?
Yeah.
And so,
and the glass is international just because glass is international.
right, but there is a huge American, but so I don't want people to think that you're just.
No, we're not becoming a glass museum.
No, and you're not giving away, but that makes perfect sense. But it also helps to get the Fort Wayne Museum of Art on the map, because now all these other museums and people are seeing it and taking a look and,
Well, and we're also, in a small way, we're trying to give a different role model. Museums are very hermetic. I mean, they're very closed door.
Yes.
Well,
because and it's by nature. You can look at it, you can't touch it.
That's right.
You can't,
These are my things.
Right.
These are my things.
Right.
And you can have your things, but you're another museum.
Right.
And partly, I'm motivated by the idea that I can knock on your door. I am from my little cave, and you are in your little cave, but I'm knocking on your cave door saying, I'd like to give you something, And by example, maybe you could call me sometime and say, you'd like to loan me something.
Right.
Because the most famous thing in our business that nobody knows about is that we really don't like to loan things to other people in the business, in the field of museum. I say, well, I'm going to have a show about Picasso.
Right.
And you have a little drawing, a little pencil drawing, and I don't have one. Could you loan it to me for my show about Picasso's ceramics?
Right.
No, not really. Well, I know that it's not an important piece, and I know it hasn't, I look at your archives, it hasn't been on display in 20 years. Well, it could be too fragile, it could be too much work, I don't have anybody to box it up. I mean, we have all these excuses that sound wonderful, but the fact is museums don't play nice, and there's no reason for it. And I'll tell you what, our communities across the country, all our communities would benefit if museums would relax a little bit, stop this and open your arms up and say, hey, these are resources we could share, give, loan, whatever. What do you have that you could share, give, and really do it? And then things would come to Fort Wayne, things would come to Cleveland, things would come to Los Angeles that are elsewhere, and they're never going to come there. But that's a hard thing to bring up. You can't even talk about that at a museum conference.
So what percentage of the shows that you, or exhibits you put on at the museum in the given year are what you would call traveling, shows?
Yeah, a traveling show with a rental fee.
Right, and are developed, grassroots from your curators, would you say?
Well, the first half of that answer is that we do rent traveling shows if the material is not available to us anywhere. The only way we could get it is to rent this show from this other institution. And that's great. And museums are great about that.
Right.
They will rent you a show.
Right.
Now, we also can put shows out and rent them to other institutions. It's harder for us to do it, honestly, because these days, the staffs of all museums, ours included, aren't really deep enough to manage that traveling exhibit experience. And so what most museums really do is they outsource. There's a company called Museum Box. There's 9 or 10 different companies. Museum Box I was on the phone with yesterday. And they, for a fee, you tell them what's in the show, and they arrange for all the crating. They sell the show, if you will. They market it, they sell it, they book the tour, and that's what they make their money on. And the museum picks up maybe 22%, and they pick up maybe, 70-something percent.
Right.
And that's a great model, but you've got to have some wherewithal to do that.
Right.
And I was talking to that group I just mentioned because I would like them to put David Shapiro on the road. And so like anybody that's marketing anything, they said, okay, give us the pitch, and then we'll go pitch our salespeople.
Right, who go out to
and they'll see how many of our clients would take a David Shapiro show. And so we'll see. I don't know what the answer will be, but that's how you get them out on the road and really travel them. Yeah, we tried to do it in-house with the staff I have.
You can't.
And nobody has enough time to.
I mean, how many
does the
how many
creating?
curators do you really have?
Oh, I've only got 2.5.
Right. So, I mean, it doesn't work. So let's talk about, I don't know, Dale Enox?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk
Marvelous
about
sculptor.
this piece that is, what is the name of it? That's the new piece in front of the museum that was part of
the
your 100th.
Rivers.
The Rivers. Okay. So let's talk about that, because this was part of your 100th. So let's talk about that. And I mean, I'm always interested in the logistics in the back. So how did it come about? And the role it plays and what happened?
Okay, let's take 2 steps back. I didn't know Dale 4 years ago. And I got a lovely invitation to go to Indianapolis to not just an opening of his exhibit at a gallery, but at the Long Sharp Gallery, as a matter of fact. But it was an exhibit that after the cocktail party, the crowd left, and there was a private dinner in the back room. And so here I'm at a table, there's maybe 9 of us, and one being the artist, and I think, nice guy, beautiful work, I really love the work. And we start talking, and he said, I'm so pleased that you're here from Fort Wayne, whatever. And I thought, this guy's really happy, why? Well, it turns out he's from Fort Wayne. It turns out he's studied at the Fort Wayne Art School.
Which was connected to the original museum, right?
That's right, and none of this do I know. So we're over here hugging and crying and having this experience of like, I can't believe that we didn't know each other earlier. And I bought, from that show, I bought 2 pieces for the museum, 2 large pieces. And
Are those on view yet?
yeah,
they're on view now.
I put them, I loved them, and I put them on view immediately in the Rothschild atrium. And Dale, of course, came up, and he loved them, and so on and so forth. And it led us to start talking about what else could we do together? What else could we do together? And I thought, okay, well, I haven't got a project yet, but let's see what might come about. Well, of course, here comes the 100th. And I said, Dale, I've got the 100th coming up, and I feel like we should commission something. That would be our project. And you'd be the perfect person to be the artist in the project, because you take us back to our history when we were in art school and a museum, and it's like a homecoming for you, and we're the host. So let's do a big piece.
And doesn't he work in Indiana limestone?
Yes, he does.
So there's that connection too.
Great connection.
Right.
And so he's a very inventive artist. He's got he carves in limestone. He makes prints. He works in aluminum. This piece is a combination of his limestone and his aluminum, and we just took off. And strangely enough, though, we took off and we had a solution fast. We knew what it was going to be. It was going to be an 18-foot tall piece of a striding person, and we loved it. And over the course of maybe, I don't even think a week, maybe 3 or 4 days, it's almost a done deal. We've almost had a handshake. Right. He says, could I talk you into something different? I think, what? He says, well, I got sketching this weekend, and I got a new concept. I thought, I like the striding figure.
Right.
He goes, just bear with me.
Was the striding figure based on sort of seeing the progression of his work up to that time?
It was. And what got him back in the sketching mode, though, was he's made one striding figure already.
Right. But I'm just wondering, like, how they talk about artists in different periods?
Yes.
So when he said he wanted to show you something, I was thinking maybe he's moving into a new period or
that's exactly what he
materials.
wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And he said, I just don't feel, he said, coming back to Fort Wayne, I feel really like I'm on stage, and I don't want to do something I have done a version of. I said, okay, I'll listen. So what will you do? So he said, give me a couple of weeks. So he ruminates for a couple of weeks, and he comes up to the notion that Fort Wayne itself wouldn't exist as a city if it hadn't been for the convergence of the rivers and the traffic and the the commerce and all this.
Right.
That gave rise to Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne became prosperous, which gave rise to the art school, which gave rise to the Museum of Art.
Right.
And it became even more prosperous, which gave rise to the Museum of Art being able to move into a new building in 84. He said, somehow I want it to be about the spirit of the rivers. I think, okay, sounds great to me. I said, what would it look like, though? He said, well, I don't know. I think somebody would be coming up out of the river. And I think, that sounds like a, Martin Scorsese shot in Apocalypse Now with coming out of the, no, I don't know about that. He said, just let me work with it. Okay. And he worked it, and he worked it, and he worked it, and he came back, and it was bolder than anything we ever thought about. It was almost as tall as the first piece, so it was big and imposing, but it basically was the head, and in this multi-layered aluminum and stone flow the rivers, and they flow into the head, so they flow to inform the mind of the city that would become Fort Wayne.
Have you watched it, since we've had a lot of rain? Have you watched how the rain?
Yeah, you see the motion of the water.
It goes through it?
And in 2 weeks, it'll be lit at night.
Oh.
From inside, up inside.
Oh, wow.
So you'll see the layering, you'll see the shadows on the brick.
Right.
So this piece came out of a homecoming moment in Indianapolis.
Right.
And here's our big gift to the community for the 100th. And people love it.
Yeah.
So many selfies with
Yes,
it, and on
and
your
now
Facebook
you have
page.
you have a little bit of a sculpture row, But how does that? What is the? Because now also we've got the Public Arts Commission, and we've got a lot of murals happening and public art. And how does the museum? What's the museum's role within that? Because now you've got there are 4 pieces right out, well 5 actually, right out in front there. So you're almost like a sculpture garden. How do you work together? Or how do you see what they're trying to do and what the museum's role is?
Well, I think the de Souvreau piece gives us a great example.
And the de Souvreau piece, which one is that one?
That's the big orange piece that got hit by a vehicle maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And we got it restored and repainted. We repainted everything when Dale was going to install because we wanted everything to look fresh and nice. Okay. Well, that's not on our land. It's a museum's piece, but we in 2002 decided to move it onto city land so that it would be more accessible and not cramped in. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine a piece that big with the 5 pieces I've got? It's too much.
Right.
So more accessible, and I use that as an example because as other big pieces come into our collection, outdoor pieces, I think what we would want to do, and in fact we've already discussed it, at least initial discussions, is work with the Art Commission, of which I'm a member, and say, okay, where in Fort Wayne, not on my lawn, but where in Fort Wayne could we put 3, 4, 6 other major pieces by big name sculptors that would be good for the community?
So it would sort of be like the Storm Gallery. I mean, they have all that land, but they sort of put them all over.
That's right.
So you're just going to use all of Fort Wayne as the canvas of putting these artworks.
I think it's the civic responsible thing to do.
Right.
Because then, in fact, rather than demanding that everybody has to come down into my back parking lot or my front lawn or whatever it is, you say, okay, these are in places that the city and the Art Commission think are important, and I think that's good for the citizenry.
Yes.
I also think it's good for corporations downtown.
Right.
Those are there.
Or
Those
also
are
in the neighborhoods. But I also think it's a great way, because I still think that some people think that a museum setting isn't for them, or they don't understand it.
Well, that's exactly right.
Right.
I'm too shy.
Right.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to wear.
Right. And then people are also, so one of the things I really wanted to ask you about is this whole idea of in art, people always are about if they like it or not. And we've become really a society of likes, how many. I'm wondering if that's still, because I just feel like something, or if I like it, it's just become so gratuitous because you could just like someone's post or like that or whatever.
That's right.
But that's a lot about what art is if you like it or not. Has that sort of changed or evolved, or has it become more sophisticated in people trying to, because it's just, everything's likable, or?
No, I don't. I think it's changed in this sense. Let's go to the last of the 19th century. We haven't quite gotten into the 20th yet. Okay. You and I could both look at a piece. You might like it more. I might like it a little less. But you know what? The piece was going to be representational,
right,
which meant there are two figures in it.
Right.
They look like figures. Their arms are exactly the right length. Their necks are the proper length and everything like this. And so is it good? It's good. I mean, you
right,
like it.
Right.
I'm not so sure I like it. But I know it's good and you know it's good because it's proportionately correct.
Right.
It's well painted. It's well crafted. 20th century changes all that.
Right.
The 20th century and modern art, you know, start even with something as simple as Modigliani. His women look correct, except
Right.
you look and you think her neck is like 3 times too
Right,
long.
right.
Okay, so is he a bad artist because the neck's too long? No, he's expressing.
Right, or like
okay?
Picasso. But
So Picasso and all these guys. So now it's blown open, the fact that people don't like or dislike based on anything that is measurable anymore, except how you feel.
right, but do you think that, I sort of feel like in some cases,
That's okay.
art shouldn't be about if you're picking it for your house, you know,
Yeah.
and they always say if you're going to collect, don't try to collect to buy for the
Yeah.
future, buy what you like. But I sort of feel like sometimes when you go to an exhibit or something, it may not be about if I like it or not. It may be about trying to understand the message or understanding that they were experimenting with something. Like, because personally, I don't like a lot of very modern art today. I mean, I like 20th century contemporary.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I don't like a lot of the more experiential kind of things or digital types of things. Some of it I just feel so, but I don't think that it's if I like it or not. It's more trying to understand or the message, or I just feel like maybe if people don't think about art, because sometimes they'll say, oh, I could do that. Well, yeah, but at the time when Jackson Pollock was throwing paint on the floor, nobody was doing it.
That's
so
right.
I think like if we try to get people away from thinking about, oh, if I could do it or not, and also if they like it or not, but understanding it and why it's a good piece. Like, because some people will say, well, why is this at a museum? Like you said, because there are certain aspects of it. And maybe that helps them to develop a palette of, look at, and because I just think like if people go, well, I don't like it.
Yeah,
I
think you do develop a palette. I think because nobody's going to judge you for liking or not liking anymore anyway.
Right.
Okay, so you have freedom now. You have freedom to express your love or lack of, and that freedom's good. And the freedom makes you more willing to look at things.
Right.
Because I'm not going to judge you when you say, I'm looking at this, it's not for me. You know, I think, okay, but what kind of things do you like?
Okay, but I just wonder, should the end goal of someone coming to a museum to look at art to decide if they like it or not? I don't believe that should be the emphasis of it.
Well,
you could have something that resonates with you, makes you feel, draws you in, but I just feel like we're just got so caught up in this like and dislike society that
the museum is the place where you should go, or you do go, for some sort of neutral learning experience. So I may not like it, but you know what I learned? I learned that de Souvreau was trying to revolutionize sculpture by working with industrial steel.
Right.
Huh. Now, I don't think I would never buy one, but you know, that's an interesting point because he wasn't pouring bronzes. He was taking, you know, I-beams from a skyscraper and cutting them up and shaping them into an orange thing on the lawn. And think, okay, I learned something out of that. So I think outside our doors, you can run around thumbs up, thumbs down, all you want.
Right.
When you come in, I think people come in intentionally to learn about this thing.
Or to be encountered with it, but so I think, you know, people shouldn't be thinking that they're going to a museum to to see if they like or dislike something. It should just be just go, like no judgment, no expectation, just go.
Go and have an experience.
And see, right.
Well, you know, it's fascinating because we had the Mucha show earlier
Yes.
this year, and Mucha's works are very, very beautiful. And yet, the thing I heard more than any other comment was they whispered to each other, he was in advertising. Think, wow, yeah, so what? They're beautiful things. And that was a big surprise for people. He was in advertising. Like that beautiful lady is actually on the cover of a magazine.
But
he's
what do
trying to
people
sell.
think ads are? It's a subliminal way to,
That's
it's-
right.
Right.
Well, and the graphic. See, today we compartmentalize
Yes.
so easily
Right.
that certainly a graphic designer is not really an artist. Well, that's not true.
No.
There are very successful artists using their talents to get their thing to market.
Right.
And get an audience for
Right.
it. So actually their job is probably bigger than, the person that sits up in their attic and does a bunch of splashy paintings.
Right.
And there's no judgment.
Right.
Okay, there's a lot of judgment for that graphic designer.
Yeah.
So Mucha did a lot for all the graphic designers in town, I think. It's like, elevate them,
Right.
appreciate this. But it was so funny because people come in and go, it's so beautiful, but I think they're trying to sell something. I said, yeah, they are.
Right.
That's what he was doing.
But it was good that you didn't hear that they liked or disliked it. Because I
No,
just think we need to get people, and I think if people would go to a museum just knowing that, just go. Like, it's not about if you like it or dislike, just go and see what happens.
Have an experience.
Right.
Have an experience.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, Mucha drew an audience that I would tell you probably wasn't coming for the glass, they were coming for
that,
Mucha.
right. And I bet
Okay?
you probably got a
And
lot
that's-
younger.
They would say at the front desk, "Where's the Mucha? Where's the Mucha?" Okay, so I know you're going this way. And
But then they would wander around.
that's right. And the people saying, "Where's the glass? Where's the glass?" You know what? Wait 5 minutes, and they peek into the other one's
Right.
galleries. Like, oh, I came for the Mucha, but the glass was pretty nice. Oh, I didn't. What's the Mucha? Oh, it's in that room over there. Oh, the Mucha's beautiful. But I came for the glass.
But
so
that's the whole idea of
that's a
coming-
great,
right, that's
you
the-
know,
you should
open your
just
mind
go
up,
to the
open your
museum.
eyes up.
Right.
Yeah, it was super.
So at the end of each And Good Company program, I ask guests the same 12 questions that were popularized by French novelist Marcel Proust. But you have already answered my first original 12 questions. So I have another baker's dozen for you.
Okay.
What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh, my job is my idea of perfect happiness. I go into my sandbox every day and play my heart out.
What is your greatest fear?
Time.
What is the trait you most deplore in yourself?
I could be more humble.
Which living person do you most admire?
My wife, Amanda.
What is your greatest extravagance?
Grocery shopping. And that's absolutely the truth.
Amanda must love that because she probably sends you with a list. And
Yeah.
you probably don't come up back with half the list, but all these other interesting
All these other
things.
things, that's right.
What is your current state of mind?
I'm very upbeat right now. That's not unusual for me, but I'm particularly upbeat
Well, you have a lot.
this
Okay,
morning.
Right. Good. On what occasion do you lie?
When I've bought too many things at the grocery store and I've left them in the car. Is that all you got? It is. And she knows I'm lying.
Right.
Bring in the other bags from the car. Okay.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Wow.
What talent would you most like to have?
I guess I dreamed of being an artist originally.
Well, you are.
And as I became an art historian, I realized critically I wasn't any good.
I don't know. I like that piece that you had in last year.
Oh, that was
auction.
that was a good
really
piece.
good one. Yeah. What is your most treasured possession?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Because I know you have certain things you keep on your desk that you
Yes.
like.
Yes. I think probably the beautiful Bible that Amanda gave me 2 years ago for Christmas.
What do you most value in your friends?
In my friends, candor.
What is your greatest regret?
Oh, I have a long list of those.
What's on the top?
Okay, greatest regret. Maybe I don't have a long list of those. Because I'm coming up with the opposites. I'm coming, like,
So maybe
a year after I got here, I was offered the head job at the Wadsworth Athenaeum. And I turned it down. And a lot of my friends regretted that. And I think that's not a regret of mine. I was gambling on Fort Wayne. I'm happy I did gamble on Fort Wayne.
you double down.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were to die and come back as a person or thing, what would it be? Or who would it be?
Okay. This is another example of my lack of humility. I'd come back as myself for another round.
And maybe do the things that you regretted the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
time.
that's right, that's right.
Right. Well, I want to thank Charles Shepard, the president and CEO of the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, for having a seat at our table. And I realized that we can't wait another year to have you come. I think we need to have you come a little bit more frequently because there's a lot of exciting things, and I think we need to keep checking in and finding out. And
I would love to come visit with you and chat.
great. Well,
Indeed.
perfect. I really look forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And you can learn more about Ann Good Company and all the other great conversations we have had at anngoodcompany.info. And we look forward to next week when you can again enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company. There you go.